Welcome to the Heartwork podcast, where we delve into stories, struggles, and triumphs of entrepreneurship, leadership, and personal growth. I'm Dr. Sara.
And I'm Dr. Marisa. We're here to guide practitioners, entrepreneurs, leaders, and those just navigating the complexities of life on a journey of discovery that explores the dance between passion and strategy, heart and hustle.
With candid conversations, insightful interviews, and plenty of laughs, get ready to uncover how leading with heart can transform your business and life. Let's dive in. So, hey, y'all, welcome back to our next episode of the Heartwork podcast. Today, we are diving into all things hiring. We are so excited. We're going to be diving into a lot of the things that matter to us when it comes to hiring and really finding the who people, the people that matter to our vision, to our culture. And these are things that we've learned along the way and have honestly evolved, changed, and I'm excited about it. And the beautiful part, as we get started, so Marisa and I are in different stages of life and practice. So I think we both have some things to offer where it just varies when it comes to the level of leadership and how it's just changed in our practices. And so we're going to share a little bit about that today, of like where we are, the strategies behind finding that who and finding that person in your practice. And Marisa is like brand new into practice, is adding so many amazing people in her practice right now. And she has a lot of insight when it comes to adding all that strategy and adding that person in. So I'm so excited for you to hear from her. So Marisa, take it on.
I'm really excited to do this because, like you said, freshly into practice, and what that looks like is obviously I had my first practice for only 6 months, and my 3 team members that I hired were basically there the whole time. But as I've opened the second practice, we've been open about 1.5 years now. And as we're growing and I get to actually experience that over a longer period of time, that also comes with the fact that not everyone's going to stay. Yeah. And some people will use this job as a way to just learn more personal skills in customer service, and other people are doing it while they're studying other things. And if you're a great fit and you contribute positively to our team culture, I'm willing to honor that process for you, knowing that you may not stay obviously forever. I'd love for my people to, but that doesn't always happen. And also when we're in a period of growth, I also invest a lot of time in our training, like owning a chiro office. My team members are doing pretty much everything other than adjusting and like the specifically clinical side of the actual chiropractic process. But they are trained very well and very intently. And so when you invest a lot of time in your people for training, and then you may have turnover in some capacity, like that takes a lot of time. Mm-hmm. And so something I've learned along the way is how to really utilize the interview process to ask more specific questions so that we can try as best as we can. Obviously, life and situations are unpredictable, but how do we do the best we can to kind of filter some of that out of the way so that you know if a person that you are going to hire is going to be there and give of themselves to not only the training process, but then to your practice. You can't guarantee for how long they're going to be there, but are they going to be intentional about it? And so we really kind of turned training into almost a 2, even 3-step process. Mm-hmm. I find a lot of people, obviously it'd be great to find someone just right in your practice, or the mom of a practice member, or a family member of a kiddo that's coming in under care. But sometimes it's just not the way that life works out for them. And so you're reaching out almost like cold casing to Indeed or ZipRecruiter or these other processes, or even Instagram. Yeah. Super fun. And most of the times in like situations like that, people are just mass applying to open jobs that they may quote unquote qualify for. So how do we kind of sift through the riffraff of just those random batch applications? And so initially we'll have people fill out like a cover letter and go to our website specifically to like answer certain questions, but not everyone does that too. So if you are going to end up just starting off with a quick phone interview, I've gotten really tailored on some of the things that I may ask over the phone or have a team member start to ask as I delegate those things now to a team that have been with me for a longer period. And really, you just want to understand the quick logistics first. Like, even though your ad may say full-time, you'll have people that are looking for part-time, and they're just like hoping and willing that someone else is looking for part-time too, and they can both be a full-time person. Mm-hmm. So just really getting clear with hey, so just a couple quick logistics to ask out of the way. Are you looking for full-time, part-time? I do always say, I know it's a quintessential question, but tell me about yourself. I've had people literally just tell me, yeah, you're a small business owner and I want to own my own small business one day. And so I just want to learn from you. It's like, okay, that's cool. I'd love to
Yeah.
mentor you from a business standpoint, but maybe we like get coffee sometime versus
Right.
like,
Why
we
not
pay you to be an employee in my practice. Yeah.
for you to go start your own business in a couple years or just a couple months? Yeah.
Exactly. But also, I mean, you're in an interview process. I appreciate your candidness and like your honesty, but are you even actually interested in the role? Like, do you
Yeah.
care about people? Do you care about serving them? Do you care about health and healing? And so I'll ask them what initially actually interested you about our position? Have you heard of chiropractic care? Do you have any experience with chiropractic care?
Yeah.
What are some of your short-term and long-term goals, right? If someone has a short-term goal of just kind of making ends meet or paying off debts and they're looking to move to Colorado in 6 months, it's like, okay, the amount of time that we invest in that person may not be fruitful for what we're actually looking for if they're planning to just go. And I've been encouraged through this from Pablo. I know we kind of have mentioned Pablo's name. He's a spiritual heart and business coach that we both work with. But as we've had some different team turnover because of people's personal lives, you can't really ask them straight out, like, is your personal life in check? Like, are you okay? Are
Right.
you mentally, emotionally, physically stable to handle a tough training process? But I will just kind of lean in like, hey, this initial 3 months of training will require time, not only in the practice, but also outside of the practice.
Yeah.
Do you feel that you have at this time and in your season of life the capacity to really devote hours of time to being able to learn and train up to not only help serve our team, but serve our community in the best way possible?
Yeah.
And so I kind of leave it as like that open-ended question. And you do get to start to glean in a little bit about people if they're hesitant with it or not. So I'll kind of start off with that initially. And if I've reserved a half an hour for a phone interview and in those first 5 minutes, I start to get some of those kind of yellow flags, like I'll cut it. Be like, thank you so much for your interest. We will let you know, and kind of lean it in that way. If they start to say some things, I'm like, okay, this could potentially be like a good fit. I'll go into some deeper questions to learn a little bit more about the person, because the idea is, especially in a service-based industry, I feel that you can teach anyone how to do something. I can teach you how to do the programs on the computer, how to use Google Docs, or how to use our EHR system, but I cannot teach you how to be a human being.
Right.
Like,
No.
how to smile at someone when they walk into the doors and just naturally have that candor to engage in a conversation about someone, like how to know how to meet people where they're at. And obviously we continue to finesse and curate that as we continue to grow as a team and you get through that training process. But there's definitely a personality that you can utilize or maximize when you're in the office working people facing all the time.
I think that's important, because when we're thinking about, like, not only just as you're asking those questions, you just nailed it on the head. Is like, you're thinking about who you need to be adding to your team and what you're looking for already. So you've set a lot of that standard, and just that understanding of like, okay, I may need somebody up at the front desk, and this is outside just chiropractic. It means like, who are the people that you're adding that's going to like to bring energy, to bring this, like if we're looking for somebody at the front desk, we want somebody that's energetic. We want somebody that can talk to a mom, talk to a baby, hold a baby, multitask. Like, there's so many different avenues of that. So I love that. You nailed that on the head when it comes to, okay, we're setting the standard for this is who I'm looking for. And then ultimately you get to ask those questions around that expectation or that standard.
Oh, yeah. And I feel like getting an understanding of if a candidate has self-awareness. Because if they're not self-aware, like how can they help others in those moments, right? If they're not even aware of their emotions, their own feelings, what's going on in their life, or can kind of pick up the pieces, like you said, and multitask and understand, oh, the fastest one going, someone's waiting a little bit longer for, a call to a room or a call back for a service, and you see them kind of tapping their foot and shaking it up, and you're like engaging with another family that's perfectly happy. Maybe you get the chance, like, go over and just say, hey, what was the weekend like? What do you got planned? And you start to engage, right? So it's hard to learn about those people when you don't see them in person. And that's definitely a part of the process later. But it just even asking them questions, like, you get the quintessential ones of what are your top three strengths, or what are your top three weaknesses? But I always like to focus in on the positives. So I'll focus in on the strengths or, hey, how have you raised the bar significantly for yourself or someone else? How do you manage stress and conflict?
Yeah.
Is there something at your prior job that really bothered you? What did you like most about prior employment? What did you not like as much about prior employment? What was your most challenging responsibility? What happened when you were held accountable and you didn't actually perform at the level that you were supposed to? Why do people like working with you? What's been the most difficult criticism for you to accept? What are the things that you've learned from the biggest life lessons you've had in the last 5 years? So you're asking these questions that are going to throw people off and make them think because they may have just heard, what are your top three strengths? What are your top three weaknesses? And they have rehearsed answers, right? So you pull them on the spot and you see, does that person have a rehearsed answer? Are they self-aware enough to answer those questions? Do they know what they like? Do they know what they don't like? And that helps you glean too, perhaps if you are looking for a specific person, if they are a good fit for that role, or if you're looking for someone like me, where I may just need some bodies at this point because we're growing, and I need to have someone there. And if a team member isn't present for a shift, like we feel it, right? It's not like we have a team of 10 beautifully like you do, or 15, or these larger places of business where you can kind of train someone in and have them ebb and flow, and it's not going to, throw off your whole day, for example. I'll even ask people, what qualifications do you feel like you might lack for the position? And what do you need to help make up for it? So almost like even engaging them in the process of thinking like they already have the role. What kind of support are they looking for? What are you looking for in a boss? What are you looking for in a leader? What are you looking for in a team? What's an example of a time where you may have gone above and beyond to enhance the reputation of a company that you were working with? So like you're gleaning these answers about people on a more heart-based level and a more internal-based level. And then you can, if they had great answers, if you feel like it's a vibe, you're understanding their heart, you're empathizing, you're learning about this person, and then you can bring them in for like a task base. So that's kind of my next process. And I'll have them come in person with me and another team member present because I love to involve my team in that, especially my team that are more veteran and they've been there for longer. Because guess what? Most of my time now anymore as a chiro, I'm spent in the adjustment rooms doing all that. My team is the one that works with each other and helps the office flow in the day to day. And so this is the person that they're going to be interacting with the most, not necessarily me. And so I love having them present. And I may send along like, hey, I want you to take me on a quick little tour of the office. I want to see how you engage, how you talk on the fly. What are you making eye contact? Like, what is that person in front of you like? And then I'll start to ask team-based questions because we are a very specific team atmosphere and we have a lot of honor and awareness in our office for all the moving parts, right? Like you said, there's so much that could be going on, even just in your reception or waiting area. And so are you the type of person that keeps that in mind or even just checks in with a team member and they start to look frazzled and they got the sweat pit stains and like it happened, that you have awareness that, you may have some tasks on your plate that need to get handled, but what's the difference between like important and urgent and making sure that other team member also feels supported if they're overwhelmed, right? And so we'll ask things like what are examples of times where you have handled or prevent conflicts? Did you ever have to give someone constructive feedback? Because I want to know, can they dish it? Can they handle it? If there's feedback that comes back, or if a team member, is double checking someone's work and it wasn't quite up to standard of where it needed to be for that specific task. What was the most challenging responsibility that you had at a prior job? What do you do or say when someone who works with you makes a significant mistake, whether that's a costly mistake, whether that's, serious in any nature? What kind of teams have you been a part of that have been the biggest disappointment in terms of like cohesiveness, effectiveness? How about the biggest successes? What are, in your eyes, those main barriers to achieving a high level of teamwork and success? So it kind of helps me understand, again, what is their experience working with others? Do they work with others well? Do they pay attention to what actually makes a group and a whole work well and positively together? And then I'm letting my team member listen into all that process. And then I ask like big picture questions. What are your career goals? How does this job actually fit into that? I had a recent hire who was interested in going into like occupational therapy. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was curious, like, why aren't you applying for an occupational therapy office
Oh,
job?
for sure. Absolutely.
Like what are your career goals? How does this job fit into that? And the
Mm-hmm.
way they answered it really gave me confidence that, okay, whether they want to go into that field or not, and now they're going to be a chiropractor. So that's super exciting.
Amazing.
But what does that actually look like for me, my practice, and what you're actually trying to contribute to our team and our culture
Mm-hmm.
and our environment and our community? I always ask a fun question, like, what are the first 3 things you would do if you got hired? Where do you see yourself in a year, 5 years, 10 years? Because that also starts to give me information of if they do become a part of my team, how do I best honor them and their also personal goals in their life? And do they align with what we're also looking for?
For sure.
Ask them, obviously, if they have questions about pay, benefits, any of the logistics of that. And then I honestly leave the room. And I
Mm-hmm.
give my team member the chance to interact with them without me present and
Right.
let them ask each other questions, right? From a team-based standpoint, because like I
Mm-hmm.
said, I'm in the room. I'm mostly not interacting with my team during the day. I'm interacting with our clients.
Yeah.
They're the ones interacting with each other and working the moving parts. So I feel like that gives also that candidate the opportunity to learn about your team and your team culture, because there is a giant movement towards work environment and getting away from toxic work environments and being in a place that also honors you as a person, as a human being, right? So I think it's really important to give them an opportunity for that. And then they also get a different perspective, right? Are they going to
Yeah.
answer questions differently when I'm not around? What does my team member think about that? Because again, they're the ones that are going to be spending more time together,
Yeah.
not me. So those are the ways that we kind of help to understand about a person and their heart first. Obviously, there's logistics that have to just make sense.
Mm-hmm.
They just have to fit the puzzle piece.
Mm-hmm.
But then how do you get away from asking the generic questions that they've rehearsed and understood for every other job interview and ask them more deeper rooted questions? Because also, these are the type of questions they're going to have to ask the clients that sit in front of us that are looking for change in their lives, with their health, with their families.
Mm-hmm.
And so how, what is that candor? What does that comfortability actually look like? And then giving them the opportunity to perform a task in some small capacity, right? Okay, if I give you this thing, like, are you going to be accountable? Are you going to get it done? If you're not even getting paid for the job, do you have some self-motivation and pep to like do
Right.
something about it? And then giving my team an opportunity to just have a moment with them and see if they vibe in a positive way.
I love that. That's amazing. So to
Yeah.
sum that up, because I'll add some of my stuff too, but to sum that up for our listeners that are hanging out with us right now. So talk about so you basically do a 3-step process, right? Just sum that.
Yeah.
So phone interview.
Yep.
All
So check to see if they have sent the cover letter and have gone to the
Resume,
website
yeah.
to answer certain questions in that cover letter and submitted a resume.
Mm-hmm.
If they haven't, if their resume is really stand out, I might prompt them like, hey, I didn't receive your cover letter. Maybe it didn't get attached. Like, send it along to this email.
Yep.
And then, I hop on the phone and do a quick phone interview. I answer those logistic questions right away to see if it's even worth my time to spend 45 minutes with a person that might be looking for part-time. And I didn't ask them that when I need a full-timer. And then going into the in-person interview, which is kind of like a 3-step process in and of itself. A quick task-based interview, and then, more teamwork-based, team aspect questions, quick logistics about anything they may have questions about of the role, and then letting my team member who's present, whether it's one or two of them, have an opportunity to have a conversation. And then from there, I obviously value what my team says, but ultimately I evaluate the candidates and then make a decision about who we're going to offer the job to.
That's amazing. We do which I love it because I love all the details of that. And the intention behind it is so critical when it comes to just finding the person that's going to
Totally
best be able to vibe with you while also at the same time add to your practice and just add to your business in general. And so we've learned that along the way. And one of the beautiful things that where we are now, almost 9 years into this process, is I don't do all the front up work, which is just a gift. And I'm so grateful. And we've developed systems and developed a team that basically can do a lot of that, where they can weed out the processes for me so that by the time I get a chance to actually be in their presence, it's like the final last little process. And so we're very similar. So we have the first initial intake where obviously people are sending in. It matters to us, like you said, if they follow directions. That's an important factor. If you can follow directions, it's like, obviously it's yes or no to a certain degree on that.
Right.
And then, because we want, like, we've had some where, because I think one of the coolest things too about hiring and in these systems and processes as you evolve can always change. And I think like that's the coolest part too, is like you can give yourself grace and understand where you are in that season and really navigate what you need and how to adapt your processes to that. Well, also like for us, our foundation has always been the same. It's always, there's always been a process, there's always been a system, but there may be some adaptation based on the season that we're in. In this last round of hiring, we really found ourselves that way. We really were asking ourselves this question of like, as we grow into this next season, we want leaders. Like, I want people to come into this practice, be able to add, to be able to contribute, not just like hold a seat, kind of, like we want people to that have been through life, that consider counseling or consider that self-awareness, have been through those types of things. So it's like we're asking questions that will find value there.
Right.
And so it's incredibly important on our end. And as you get like nitty gritty, we've hired specifically just for a position. We've hired for the whole team before, like there's going to be variables of that as well. And well, it's been fun. And I know that you're getting there more and more. Like, so our first initial step, like basically she's our office manager. She's the one that like is the heart and culture of freedom, which I love it so much. And she's the one that cultivates all the initial process. And so, and really ask those questions to be able to even see if it's somebody that could go to that next level within that interview process. And then we then basically do the same where they'll come in and do almost like a working interview to be able to come learn more about who we are. And she's the one that really navigates that with our team and really makes that awareness of saying, hey, like, this is what the job is. Do you know that this is between these amount of hours? Do you understand that this is what this looks like? This is very much a service-based industry where you're going to be with a lot of people, fast moving. Can you be adaptive and flexible is incredibly important, And so I wanted to give a couple examples too. So these are questions that I've adapted over the years that have just been vital, that have just helped us, at least in the sense of being able to understand how people react. And I would give any tip to anybody hiring, watch people's body language.
Oh, yeah.
More important than any word that comes out of somebody.
Oh, yeah. So what do they say? Like 80% of communication really is nonverbal and body language.
It's so true. Because I've asked this question. So basically, people need to and I know that they can understand it when they look at our website, that type of stuff, but I don't know if they always super understand like holistic health and this mindset. Not everybody comes to us with the same mindset that we are. I don't need them to be where we are immediately, but I need them to be open. And so I want to understand how they view health, lifestyle, sickness, illness. And so I want to know what that health journey has looked like for them. I want them to be able to share a little bit of that. I want to understand how somebody has handled big life transitions or change. Oh, yeah. Incredibly important because if it took them, it was so stressful for them to move across country and they couldn't handle that stress situation big time, or they're moving a house and it like derailed them, like, okay, that might be a harder transition in our office too, because there's a lot of change. Everything's always evolving. The only thing you can count on ever is change. So,
amen. Preach.
How you handle that is a big deal. So
totally.
I also, especially just stressful situations, sure, you can ask that question, but I love the question of like, how do you handle conflict with your spouse, your kids, or your friends? It's important, right? Like those are variable questions that don't necessarily always just get asked just in a regular interview questions. And then for me too, I always love to know the question of like, have you ever been in a situation where your health views have not aligned with somebody else's health beliefs? And how did you handle that situation? Because we are in an environment where people don't always understand what we have to offer, but we get the opportunity to invite them into a space where they get to maybe understand and hear more of what we do. And they get to open themselves up to that is just freaking beautiful, like, while also I don't want somebody that's going to be combative or debating somebody if that's not their same viewpoint.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Oh, my gosh. I think about that so much with birth, like, right. We both serve a very big prenatal population 100%. And there are all kinds of walks of life or all kinds of birth plans that people come to the table with. And you may be the crunchiest home birth mama, or you may be like, nope, we're getting multiple ultrasounds phones, we're doing this, but how do you like meet people in that space? And if you do have someone on your team that is very opinionated and shares that freely without being invited to share that, or even if it just comes across, oh, you're getting a scheduled C-section.
Yeah. I
Like
mean,
just the tone in that could
100%.
immediately put that mom on guard in a space where she's already feeling so much, people are
For
coming to
sure.
us for health, for us specifically. And if you have a team member that isn't going to meet them where they are at, and off, it's the same thing of when we offer unsolicited advice. Like someone might not be looking for that. They just want a safe space to be in their space.
Right.
So I love that question because you get to understand how that person handles it in their personal life, which is probably a similar way that they may handle it in their professional.
100%. And you nailed on the head. It's like we're creating a space for a safe space for people. And if we can't provide that, not only from our team and or just being that caretaker, like it's going to limit somebody's ability to be able to trust themselves to heal while also trust you in that healing process. And so it's incredibly just beautiful. And it's a beautiful invitation to understand where that person is coming from. So one of the other things, just as part of in my journey that I've just had to navigate, and I've talked to a lot of colleagues and other Kairos, other leaders about what it's like to work with family or friends. And for me, actually, when I first started Freedom, I actually hired out of the familiarity of friendship. And it was really beautiful for a season of time. And it was really, it honestly helped build my practice. Like we created the culture and created the elements to who we are now through that capacity. And I wouldn't change it from, at least in that season of life that we were at. Well, one of the things that it started to show in me, and this is kind of the beautiful thing is life happens for us, right? It doesn't happen to us. You and I both know that to be true. Yeah. And it invited a place for me to see that I was hiring out of familiarity because it was, for one, easier for me, but it was also fulfilling a sense of duty inside of me, where it was very much like I've discovered I very much had a mothering nature, where for me it was, I was going to take care of everybody. It was my duty to make sure everybody got paid. It was my responsibility to make sure everybody liked their job. It was my responsibility that everybody showed up, did their job well. And then at the end of the day, like they were happy, they liked me, they saw that we were successful. So it gave me so much of this identity that it then it created this really weird little bubble a little bit within our team, and just the space where I got to understand, like, man, I've created some of this, which I got to take ownership. So I think that's the beautiful part too, is we as leaders get the understanding that who we are literally bleeds into our practice, right? Oh, yeah. And where we are in our life bleeds, and it bleeds into your leadership, bleeds into all of it, which is so freaking beautiful. While it also can be hard at times too. And so I got to learn in that, really in this place of as I started to heal in my sense of like identity from that space, I got to see like, oh man, some of these are not super healthy because I was compromising so much of myself, in turn trying to take care of everybody else. And I was trying to make everybody else happy instead of allowing myself to be a really kind boss, but also a very strong boss, And so I had a hard time releasing people because I was so worried about what they were thinking about me. And in turn, honestly, my business was affected. And so, the whole thing too, like where the minute you think about letting somebody go, you should have done it already type of a thing, or you should have done it yesterday. I've never been that type of person. And honestly, thankfully, like God's kind of naturally like allowed things to move and journeys to ebb and flow as we've hired and also as people have moved into their next adventure. But I have definitely seen back on certain periods of time where I could have probably made a decision outside of, when that person, made it sooner than where that person left. And so because it was based on my own identity when it came to understanding my worth and that I was basically trying to take care of these people. So one of the things I would you may have something to add on that and I'll let you share your story. But for me, when you are looking at hiring friends or family, I would just get really clear. And it's not like it can't be incredible. I would just really invite you to consider the process of, what are some of your non-negotiables? If you are hiring a parent or hiring a friend, for one, can they see you as an authority? Can they, if you have conflict, how are you going to handle that conflict? Are they going to be able to listen to your insight, or are they just going to talk to you like you are their parent or they are their friend, like, because ultimately, as we both know, tensions arise and tensions happen, life happens. And when you hire that closely, it can make things challenging. And so I would, before any of that happens, just lay out those guidelines. And ultimately, you might also just have to figure it out as you process in it, because that's just how life happens sometimes. But I had to really get clear on those expectations and understand that I'm okay not hiring friends all the time. I don't need to hire a friend. I need somebody to be a really great team member and be able to add value to my practice. And I want people to be able to be their true selves and show up as their like true version without me having to I don't have to manipulate something for them to be able to just do a really good job. So that is one of the things I would love to leave people with when it comes to just family, friends, and what it looks like to hire out of familiarity.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I remember when I opened my first practice, Altum, I had 2 team members that I hired right away. And it was about 4 weeks in, and I was like, oh my gosh, I think we need another one, especially because one of my team members had been dealing with some health issues that were coming back to the surface because of the intensity of our opening month, right? It required a lot. We were open for the first 2 weeks from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. We wanted to get people in that were waiting to be served. This was also post-COVID, like in the middle of COVID times, and people had already been pushed out to wait until July from April to actually get into office. So it was just a lot. And my sister had graduated college and she had been doing an internship, and she was going to be done with the internship in the midsummer. Yeah. And she was applying to other jobs and waiting to hear back, but didn't have anything on the table. Mm-hmm. And it created this opportunity where it was like, she needed a job. I needed a team member. Mm-hmm. And I hired my younger sister. Mm-hmm. And it was interesting because, you think about the questions of like, am I going to be able to lead her? Mm-hmm. Can I hold her accountable? Is she going to push against things that I may say? But I have to give credit, and I feel very blessed that I had an individual who was extremely self-aware, mm-hmm. had been in a lot of jobs before, she's kind of a mini me twin, and we operate in similar ways. She took psychology classes in college and women's studies and was just very culturally aware, and just, she's awesome. I love her. And so she actually added this beautiful dynamic to my team, and she really did honor me as the doc and as the leader. And in the same way, I honored her, not just as my sister, but also as a fellow team member. Yeah. But it does require you to create a sense of yes, you are my sister. Yes, you are family. But if other team members feel like that family member may even have authority over them, even she's coming in after the fact that they were there, mm-hmm. You do have to have some nuances with that, because then that can create favoritism potentially, mm-hmm. and sour a amazing grade A team member, but they're seeing a different dynamic play out, or maybe trust boundaries be a little bit different with that team member. But I really was very focused on holding everyone to the same standards. And it was beautiful. And I did the same one-on-one meetings with her and asked her questions about how we could better our team, better myself, just like I asked my fellow team member. Yeah. And so you have to sit in that same authority, because I was talking to a colleague of both of ours who's up in Wisconsin, and she hired a aunt-in-law. So her husband's aunt. I
know who this person is. We've talked about it too. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we both have interacted with this individual as she's navigated that challenge of, it actually wasn't starting to work out. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so how do you have that conversation of, this isn't working? Is that going to affect family dynamics at the Christmas table? Right. Is that going to affect, your ability to feel comfortable talking to this person, giving feedback to that person? And especially because this was an older individual, mm-hmm. right? My sister was younger. There's that quote unquote age authority, which I don't even know if that's actually a thing, but in your brain, this is my younger sister and this is my older sister. I've looked up to her. Yeah. This was an older individual who may use some of that ageism to say that they're more wise, or they have more knowledge, or they may be in a different place and you should mm-hmm. listen to them. And it's hard for you to give them feedback because you're older than me, you have more experience than me, but I'm the owner, I'm a boss, I have to lead you. How does this work out? And she just had a beautiful situation work out where they kind of it fizzled on both of their ends. They needed more full-time. She was looking for or they needed more part-time and she was looking for more full-time. So it left. But it is challenging to navigate that space. Mm-hmm. And especially if you do need someone in and there's that, oh yeah, this would be awesome. We have such a great outside of work familiarity and dynamic, but then you bring work culture and expectations. And obviously we want to create a space where people can be their authentic selves and everyone learns in different patterns. Everyone learns and trains in a different flow, but how to honor that process with them while also understanding that they are a friend. So like, can you separate that church and state? What does that actually look like? And it can be challenging.
Mm-hmm. It's a real thing. I mean, I just know I talked to a lot of people that because it almost can seem just easier almost just because you already know them. It's like you can count on them in a sense. So,
right. And then if it doesn't, now how do you navigate having that conversation? Yeah.
Hiring is the most incredible honor. And adding to your team, I know you know this, but it's like the minute that you add people to your team, it adds so much energy and it adds so much like fun. And it can be hard and devastating as a business owner if somebody transitions out or if it's just a season of that. Well, also I've come to find that obviously we all know that what it's like to pruning does in the reality of like seasons in life. Like there is a thing in nature that literally happens where you prune something so that other things can grow. And it's literally this amazing space that we have as an opportunity to be able to add to our people and to our teams while also at the same time, like give space for them to also be, when they come into our space, I know that my team is going to change. I know that the minute that they come in and then they start, we always literally say the first year is this person is not going to be the same person that they were. Probably in the next like 3 months is literally they're not going to be. While also like we want that right person in there so that as they process, they have the skill set to understand how to process in that as well. So fun to talk about all things hiring.
All things hiring. We could do 20,000.
Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness.
Just talking about this. Even like what you were just saying there about navigating that space, like leads me into wanting to say, and also being ready to let them go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not there. Absolutely. And like what that process actually looks like and how it may seem so intimidating to have to let someone go or part ways, but what that opens up for new energy that can come in and be just so much of a better fit. We could talk for another hour about the team dynamic changes that I've had over the last 6 months. We'll save that for another episode. Yeah.
That sounds good. Give everybody to know that we got lots more to share on team stuff for sure.
Lots more to share. So thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Heartwork podcast. If you liked what we shared with you today, please rate the show and share it with your friends on social media.
Yay. See you guys next time.